It is already Thursday, July 9th, 2020. Thanks for watching the Calvary briefing today. And this is your last reminder of the week that if you would like to attend physically our worship service this coming Sunday, you can call in today and make sure that you reserve your spot. And again, we have to do this as we are trying to follow the CDC and World Health Organization guidelines. And if you feel safe, if you feel like you're ready, please come. We would love to hit our maximum number of worshipers this week. Well, what do we do in extraordinary times? For many months, I've been hearing that these are extraordinary times, and they are. We've been in the throes of a pandemic. We've been self-isolated, and now that we go out into the real world as things are opening up a little bit more, we see face masks and there's social distancing, and our contact with people is probably at an all-time low for most of us. Well, there's a guy by the name of Brian Tabb who found a really old sermon that was delivered by C.S. Lewis just before World War II began. This sermon's about 80 years old. And T.R. Milford was a vicar at St. Mary's Church in Oxford, England. And Milford had a number of young college students and prospective college students in his church, and he asked Lewis to come and speak. And so Lewis did in 1939. And as Lewis brought an address to these students, he realized that they were going into an extraordinary time. How do you live in extraordinary times? Certainly the threat of Great Britain being at war and some of the pieces already being in place for that to be a reality would mean that, well, maybe you should put your plans for college on hold. Maybe you shouldn't apply for that new job. Maybe you should even wait to get married. We should be very careful during extraordinary times, right? Well, Lewis said some incredible things in his sermon, but he basically said something that really sticks out to me. He said, life has never been normal. Life has never been normal. And he encouraged those that were listening to him not to wait for normal to return, but to remember that even though these are extraordinary times, in the future, there will be a need for someone to be a doctor. In the future, there will be a need for someone to be an engineer. In the future, there will be someone needing to be a mom raising kids. So Lewis basically said, even though these are extraordinary times, keep moving forward with what you believe God has called you to do. Well, what to do in extraordinary times? Lewis pointed out that there are 3 enemies of doing ordinary things in extraordinary times. And the first thing that he mentioned was excitement. And by excitement, he didn't mean the excitement that we have when we're up on a Ferris wheel at a carnival, when we're kind of in a celebratory mood. No, he meant the excitement that comes with crisis. When a community has been devastated by a tornado or a twister or a hurricane, there's an excitement. It's not the kind of thrilling excitement we want. It's excitement because, oh my goodness, there are these horrible things that have happened and we need to act and make sure that we have a place to live tonight. And so Lewis said that excitement like that can be an enemy of doing ordinary things in extraordinary times. He also said frustration can be an enemy of doing ordinary things in extraordinary times. We can become frustrated because, obviously, during extraordinary times, things don't go the way that we had planned. I went to Home Depot several weeks ago, and they were counting the number of people. And a little trip that I went to Home Depot to do ended up taking an extra half hour because I was waiting outside in a line in order to get into Home Depot. That was frustrating for me, and we can certainly get frustrated during extraordinary times. Finally, Lewis pointed out that fear can keep us from doing the ordinary things in extraordinary times. Fear. We can be afraid of what's happening around us, and we can be afraid of what the future might hold. Certainly in our times, as we have seen all of the events unfolding, and we see that hundreds and thousands of people have died from a virus that we didn't even know the name of, and as we see some of the reactions in our nation to the death of George Floyd, there can be a fear, and there can be excitement, and there can be frustration preventing us from simply doing ordinary things. I had the opportunity to meet a couple weeks ago with 3 college students who are a part of our fellowship, and I know we have a few more than that as well, but I was challenged to pray for these 3 because certainly they could look at what's happening around them and say, well, I'm just going to cash it in for a year. I'm just going to wait and see. But as I encouraged them, I encourage all of us, even in extraordinary times, let's continue to do the ordinary things that God has called us to. Psalm 90 seems to fit nicely with Lewis's sermon of 80 years ago. Lord, you've been our dwelling place in all generations. Before the mountains were brought forth, or ever you had formed the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You return man to dust and say, return, O children of man. For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it's past, or as a watch in the night. You sweep them away as with a flood. They are like a dream, like grass that is renewed in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and is renewed. In the evening it fades and withers. For we are brought to an end by your anger. By your wrath we are dismayed. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins, in the light of your presence. For all our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength, 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you? So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom. Return, O Lord, how long? Have pity on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your steadfast love, that we may rejoice and be glad in all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, and for as many years as we have seen evil. Let your work be shown to your servants, and your glorious power to their children. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. One of the purposes of the Calvary briefing is to encourage you. And I hope that Psalm 90 and an old sermon by a guy named C.S. Lewis would be a little bit of an encouragement to you. May our prayer today be the prayer of Psalm 90:17. Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. Brothers and sisters, get out there and do some ordinary things in these extraordinary days for the glory of God. Thanks for watching.